Welcome to everyone to this month's edition of Lakeside Chat. As you will hear throughout the morning, this is a topic that is near and dear to me. I feel like this has been a topic that I think about probably more regularly than I think about many other topics in the space of HR and marketing. And I don't know if it's just my role of being in a business development role that supports an HR organization, or if it's just this has just been something that's intrinsically a part of me. And with that, I want to invite, and we'll introduce you guys more formally here in a second, but I want to invite two amazing faces, voices, friends, I would just say at this point. So hopefully you accept that request. You've accepted my friend request today to be a part of this conversation. Julie, you come out with, and we've structured this in a way. So Julie really, and I've met a couple different times over the course of the last year, and her passion for the retention side of HR and what's happening inside businesses to support keeping employees and being aware as to what we need to be doing to keep employees is truly one of those things that I found to be contagious. I feel like I get excited about the topics she talks about as I've talked to her over the course of time. And Stephani, you and I've met through my time here at Lakeside as well. I very regularly remember our very first conversation because you were sitting exactly where you are today. And I sat there and all I wanted to do was come and see the brick wall behind you. But what you and Inprela are doing, I think, is one of those things too, when I think about just the concept of understanding both branding as a whole, but not just branding through the lens of a visual representation of branding, but branding through voice, branding through messaging, branding through visuals is one of those things too, which is why I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. But I'll let you guys introduce yourselves here in a second. For those of you that are new to Lakeside Chats, I'm going to do just a quick reminder of our rules of engagement. Couple things, some of these are things I have to say, and some of these are things that I want you to just know coming into the conversation today. One, this is a publicly recorded session. We are hoping that this will stay recorded. For those of you that attended last month, you know that the recording cut off halfway through. So the goal is that we'll have this fully recorded. And once it is fully recorded, everyone on the call today or everyone that's registered for the event will receive a link to the recording. We'll get a link to the deck. We'll get links to anything that we reference throughout the conversation and make sure that you guys get a chance to sort of stay connected to the other things that we're doing here at Lakeside. So just know it's being recorded, and at the same time, we'll make sure that you get access to that recording in terms of follow-up as well. The other piece is I very regularly refer to these as underproduced events. And what I mean by underproduced events is that the three of us have met, we've prepped, we've reviewed the deck, we have an idea as to where we think this conversation might go, but we want all currently 65 of you that are on today's event to feel like you are truly participants and not just consumers. We want you to be using, leveraging, raising of hands, reacting to comments, using chat. I see chat's already open, so that's exciting to see. So using the chat features and functionality throughout to make sure that then if you've got a question or you want to reply or you've got a point of view on something that we're saying, that you're a part of the conversation as well. Again, for those of you that have been on Lakeside Chats in the past, you know that the thing I'm probably most proud of with regards to these events is just how active that chat function has been for us. At the end of the day, we also, I don't know, Julie, Stephani, I don't know about you, but I am not the foremost authority on all things or anything in particular. And so we recognize that there are no right answers, that we are here to create conversation, to provide information sharing. And that's the goal of what we're hoping that these true chats should feel like. When I came up with the concept of Lakeside Chats 18 months ago, it was truly the idea of like two Adirondack chairs sitting in front of a lake, just having a conversation about a topic that means something to the people on the call. And so to know that now 67 of you are on today's call and this is a topic that means something to you means a lot to me as well. All right. So with that, I know I sort of prefaced why they're here, but let me allow them to introduce themselves. So Stephani, you want to take a quick second, introduce your title, your role, and sort of your connection to this particular topic?
Yeah. So Erin, first of all, I want to thank you for letting me be part of today's conversation. I think it's really exciting, and I think it's really awesome that Lakeside invests in these webinar chats. So it's special to be here today. Inprela is a content strategy and storytelling firm that I founded in 2010. Our roots are really in PR, And our focus is to help manufacturing, healthcare, and technology companies bring complex stories to life that do a lot more than just raise awareness, which is what PR is known for, right? We help clients build stories that build trust, it sparks engagement, and drives tangible business outcomes that are meaningful to them. And so I have always worked on the agency side with business to business brands, both large and small. So in addition to leading the company, I also lead up the manufacturing practice for the firm. And I'm here today because for more than 2 decades, we have been talking about workforce shortages, especially in the manufacturing space, right? And it's only been since the pandemic in 2020 that we've seen a rapid increase in the number of our clients, healthcare, manufacturing, and tech, that have wanted more support with talent recruitment and retention. So now, in many cases, our clients aren't just our marketing contacts, but they're also the HR department leaders that we're working with because they need to align the culture and the brand. So again, this is a really fun conversation because of that for me. And thanks so much, Erin.
Yeah, no, I love that. Julie, I mean, that's a hard act to follow, but Julie,
sure, I know.
Connection to this and your history too. I know that obviously where you are today is not where you were even when we met initially. Right. So do you want to tell a little bit about your story as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I 30-year career in human resources in almost every function in many industries. Having done that, I made a pivot just this year. So as of January, to launch my own firm, an HR consulting firm, Thiel Talent Strategy. And as Erin mentioned, my core focus is on building cultures that retain talent and reduce turnover. So over the years, that has been one of the areas that I just, everything that we do in HR really is to make the workplace a place where people can engage, be productive, and make an impact. And what it came down for me was my passion was around let's build high retention cultures. And so so my stated specialty, and I looked at kind of where I wanted to focus, a little different from Stephani, is on professional services. So whether it's accounting, IT, engineering, financial services, those areas are the areas I feel like I've had the biggest impact. And so that's really as I build my business where I'm starting from, and that's where my focus is. So it's been a lot of fun early momentum. It's been quite a pivot to go from being part of a corporate entity to having my own business. But I've been really fortunate to, again, have friends like Erin and others that have kind of helped me, kind of talk through the transition and what it takes to be successful running a business, in addition to bringing forward all the experience I've had over the years. So I am delighted to be here. This, like I said, just to sit down and have a cup of coffee and a chat about retention and culture. And, my partnerships in the past with marketing have been some of the most fun relationships I've had in organizations. So I just think we're going to have a blast here today, and excited to also hear from everyone that's attending too, their great experiences as well. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this is great. So I'm going to lean into this as I told both of them as we were prepping for this conversation. This has been a topic that in my mind has been 12 years in the making. I got my master's of organizational leadership from St. Kate's 12 years ago. This is about 12 years ago in May. I think when we were doing the prep call, it was almost 12 years to the day that I had presented my thesis statement. And my thesis statement, or my thesis at the time, was this really long-winded, really sort of ugly title that now I feel like if I were to go back and use things like ChatGPT, I probably would have come up with a much better name for it. But it was a study of the alignment of the perceptions of prospective employees and the intentions of leadership regarding corporate culture. So really long-winded title, but with the idea of me wanting to marry up the idea that as new hires come into an organization, how are they understanding what the culture of the business that they're starting is going to be. Like, where are they getting that information? What are they using? What are they using as a guide? What are they using as a what are they prioritizing in terms of what they're seeing as culture? And then how did that compare to how leadership of that organization want culture to be perceived? Where did they want those employees to get their information about the culture of the organization? And what I found when I did this particular study was that the answers was pretty equal across the board between what the prospective employees and the new employees wanted, or where they found culture, and what leaders wanted culture to be found from. And it was the people. It was the concept of where did the people play a part of it. So referrals of business, right? Knowing that there was somebody that was saying, hey, you should come and work at XYZ company because it's a really great place to work. Super high, like, you know, you can almost like envision the circus chart thing going all the way to the top of the thing. An employee tells you to come work with them. Huge impression that the culture must be a good place to be. The other sort of big portion of the leadership, or that the study showed me, was through the interactions that they had during the interview process. So it wasn't which technology was being used. It wasn't what was Glassdoor saying or social media saying. It wasn't those pieces of it were used, obviously, but they weren't seen as sort of the important pieces of it. It was who did they interact with and who told them to work there. And I think that tells the story of where we're talking about today. Julie, Stephani, before we jump into some of the other sort of facts around this topic, what are your thoughts 12 years in the future? If we look back on my study 12 years later, any changes that you think you'd expect to see, or any thoughts you have on that particular sort of idea or topic?
I don't think that if you did the survey today or 12 years from today, that the answer would be any different. And so here's why I say that. So we've been doing recruitment with Lakeside, and it's part of our process to have team members from each of our department interview the candidates that are coming in for more of that peer-to-peer experience, in addition to the executives, right? And the feedback that we've received from candidates, and we've had just 2 of them alone in the past month, have told us, oh my gosh, I really love that you give us access, or have given me access to a broad swath of the people on your team, so I can get to know them, so I can better understand the company, the culture, so I can understand how I might fit in, what I could learn, and what I could teach and give back, right? And I think, and our team members, they're the ones who are in the work day in, day out. They know what it takes. They know if the person's going to be a right culture fit. And so for them, it's really rewarding to get to have some level of power and control and say over, is this person, do they have the skill sets to do the job? Because I know they're going to be working with me, right? And will they fit into our culture? So I think I love that you did that thesis 12 years ago, and I think it will resonate far into the future.
Julie, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is like the core issue always is. There's what the company says and what they're trying to do, and then there's what do people actually experience. And it's like, how close are those two things? I mean, and what's the experience? So, you know, I always look at it like that gap. I mean, that's really what your study was about, that gap.
Yep.
Are they really, is what you say and what you do the same? And, you know, I was thinking through, you know, in this, you know, do you say you're all about family, but do you have a very specific restrictive bereavement policy? You know, you say you're all about empowerment, but you do like 100 follow-ups to make sure people get things done. So, you know, it's like you have to almost, and some of those things are, you know, I think culture is always a little aspirational, you know, like you're always trying to be a little better than you are in how you state culture and what you're trying to do. But it can't be too far away from what you're actually doing. And that's where, you know, again, like you're saying, you know, where's the evidence that it's working together? And those are this idea of everyone being a recruiter. If everyone in your company is a recruiter, you know you're onto something. If they're proud to say, come work at my company, that's gold. So it's those types of things that stand out to me as you bring up this topic and think about that the study that you did. So 12 years later, we're still talking about it, and here we are. I love it.
Well, and we are still talking about it. And I think
Yeah.
Stephani is still trying to figure it out. As
Yes.
you guys know, I'm the quote of the week fiend. And Julie, you may have just gotten a quote of the week update for future, because that culture is always aspirational. If nobody else didn't write that down, do it now, because that is such a good call out. Culture it's always aspirational, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we want it to be and what it actually is should always be something that we're consistently trying to do and make better, which is awesome. All right, so let's get the group involved in the conversation. So now I want you to take an introspective look at your own company that you work with, or the business that you work for. What do you want your culture of your company to be known for? And do you feel like the people that are representing or that work for you are backing that up? Stephani, I'm going to lean into you first with this question, just because, Julie, not to call you out, but Stephani has employees, so I'm going to start there and let her start with that piece of it. Stephani, from your lens, what do you want the culture of your company to be known for?
Well, I do feel like Julie teed this up with her quote, with culture is aspirational. What I hope that our culture is known for today and what I hope that it's known for in the future are slightly different. So what I hope our culture is known for today is having high standards tied to integrity, thoughtfulness, and the quality of the work over quantity. And what I hope will also be known for in the future, and it's something that we're working toward, is having a culture of healthy accountability, which is a notion that I picked up at a Good Leadership breakfast.
Yeah.
And they're really leaning into the culture of healthy accountability. So we want to adopt that. So the next question, do I think our people are backing that up? Right?
Yeah.
And this was a good one for me to ruminate around. I absolutely think we are backing that up. When it comes to, the team's integrity and protecting the quality of work, we frequently hear our clients tell us that they appreciate how candid we are. If they have a bad idea, we'll tell them it's a bad idea, right? We're not just telling them what they want to hear. We're telling them what they need to hear. And I think that does protect the quality of the work that we do and help protect integrity for their brand as well. Because to go out with a message that's inauthentic is not going to lead to meaningful results. And then
it'll get sniffed out quickly, right? It'll be one of those things that'll get sniffed out if it's not authentic. Yeah.
It's the gap, right? And so our job is to help our clients identify what is the authentic story that only they can tell, and then tell those stories, right? That's how you get to measurable, impactful outcomes. And with employee retention too. And it can be a little bit aspirational to what Julie said, but not so aspirational that they can't see it and it becomes inauthentic, right?
Yeah.
And then thoughtfulness is a really big piece of our culture. And I really struggled to come up with how do we show up thoughtfully, because it's so nuanced. And I think we do it. In fact, we have these weekly meetings on Wednesday, and I sit back and I listen to the team, and I think most of our team members would take for granted how they are thoughtfully showing up for other people in our agency, and how they're thoughtfully showing up for clients, because it's so ingrained in how we operate. So thoughtfulness looks like, I'll give a client example. It looks like we source an award or speaking opportunity for a client, but we don't just send them a link and let them go look at it and say, hey, I found this opportunity for you. They don't even have to click into the link. And my team has told them everything that they need, all of the important details that are going to answer they've pre-thought about, what does this person care about? And all of the details are there to save them time and energy. So by the time they click on the link, they know whether or not if it's a good opportunity that they want to pursue, right? And that's one way thoughtfulness shows up internally for each other. It may show up like hey, I know you're really struggling on this topic to get our client press coverage. I saw this or that news story and it made me think, like, here's an opportunity, and help frame up, right? And this is someone who doesn't even work on that client account showing up to help a colleague out without even being asked.
I love that.
So
no, and I think it's interesting too to see. Julie, are you watching the chat thread? I'm hoping you are, because there's a couple really good ones that are coming through chat. Julie, if you're looking through chat, and in terms of what your experience, or kind of what you're even coaching companies to do, and you think about when they're thinking about culture, is there any of the chat comments that are sort of resonating with you?
Sarah, you're speaking my language. No, I really think that, I mean, what I kind of, to me, the biggest test is if you were to talk to the family and friends of your employee, what would they say about the company? I think, because they're, again, we all have bad days at work, right? I mean, it happens. And, but the friends and family are kind of that neutral third party that are hearing it as it happens. They care about their loved one, and all they really care about is the person being treated well, right? Is it fair? Is it treated well? Those sorts of things. Because I think we've all gone to people in our lives and been like, I've had a really bad day, and you kind of complain about your boss, and it's like, well, yeah, but your boss was nice to you that other time. Like that type of thing kind of keeps you going. Through the ups and downs of what life is really like with work. But again, so I think that we often forget that there's a whole nother group of stakeholders out there that have opinions. And I think that when just my own personal experience, when I've left organizations, my friends and family have decided I should leave before I have decided I should leave. So it's kind of like they're the mirror or the reflection, I think, to what your true employee experience is. So that stands out to me. And so as you build your culture and communicate, what are you doing to bring it to the home? What are you doing to bring it so that there's something that your employees can brag about at home and talk about at home and have enough good experiences that it's a balance, it's a balance of the good days and the days that are not so fun, which we all have. So that stands out to me.
I love that. And I keep thinking, it's like, I don't know if you guys are doing it too, but I'm thinking about when I, like the resume, the interview question of like, talk me through your resume, or like, why did you, like, whatever, that common question that you get, or that's talked about, right? And I will often talk about, like, there's one job where I had that I left, and like, I was traveling a ton, and I use the fact that my kids would see my suitcase and start crying. And I'm like, that was my catalyst to know that it was time to change. And so your point of friends and family being able to get a gauge on whether or not you're in the right place. I do think now Kristen's on the call, so I'm hoping my kids don't just think it's just Lakeside swag that I bring home. Like, I have a towel, I have a cooler. Like, I was like, I'm sure my kids are like, yeah, Lakeside's cool because she comes home with new stuff.
Well, but I mean, but let's just talk about that. I mean, one of the companies I worked with over the years that was phenomenal at this had every summer had like employees got to pick a family gift bag for the summer, and beach towels with the logo, or road trip package for the summer. I mean, really, I mean, it was an expense, and I think a lot of companies would have thought that was extra or not necessary. But from my standpoint, and I give all the credit to the marketing team. It was something the marketing team had started, and I was got there and I was like, this is amazing. But every summer there was something that engaged the family, that people could bring home, that had some logo to it. And why not? That's great. That's fantastic. So I mean, it is sometimes the smallest gestures, but consistent over time with what you're trying to drive, that can make the biggest impact. Totally. It's not always grand gestures. Sometimes it's small things. Yeah. You can't underestimate that.
I don't want to lose Erica's question in the chat, because I think that that's important too, because we're talking about the good days. So I think the idea of how do organizations talk about handling those bad days too, right? That piece of it too. How do they handle conflict? How do they handle transparency? I do think that the juxtaposition of good and bad is also a really good gauge on how the organization manages culture, and how culture shows up.
I have been trained, I'll say I've been trained by past employees that when I get together with them and their spouses and they share about a new job that they've gone to, I always, of course, ask the person who's taken the new job how they like it. But that I've been trained to ask their spouse, how do you like their new job? And sometimes you can see it. Their faces light up or there's hesitancy. And I think that's really telling too. Like, is this the right fit for this, person that we care about?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is tied to their reactions when there's hesitancy. Sometimes it's tied to exactly what Erica is saying. When there's not always alignment, when there's conflict.
I love that. All right, let's jump into a couple other pieces of it. I think oftentimes we start with the idea that culture starts with the loveliness of a mission, vision, values, right? Whether it's a written mission, vision, values, or just how it shows up. And I think it's everything from, Julie, to your point, the small things, the small gestures, to branding as a whole, right? Like, I think all of those things play into it. So I pulled in a couple facts, and I want to just get your guttural reaction to these two different facts from this side of it. So 21 employees can correctly name their company's mission, and only a mere 10% believe that that's reflected in their daily work. Julie, thoughts? React.
Very true. And I think some of this is because so many mission vision statements are very similar. I mean, I think that the way to start to overcome this is to have things that stand out. You have to really kind of pick your lane and decide what is your unique value proposition, what is your unique impact. And again, if there's, like, for example, I know this is mission, but I think of values. If you have 5 values, people can usually remember 3 of the 5 typically. And that type of, are those 3 even represented in what you do? An organization was very into innovation. One of their values was around innovation. Their mission was around innovation. And it was clear that was, you ask people, what is this company about? They would say something related to innovation. So, it's like there's a tendency to want to be really complicated with these topics. I think the simpler you are, the easier it is for people to remember. And then the easier it is for them to make that jump from that mission or those values to what I'm doing. So I think simplicity is the key. I think where companies go wrong is complexity.
Yeah.
So
Stephani, I want to have you react to this, but I also want you to react to what Tamara, sorry if I said your name wrong, wrote in the chat. So I want you to marry these two thoughts up. Is it important that they know the mission, or that they instead feel personally connected to the company in their own way? So fact, we have. Now we've got this really good question. Stephani, I want you to sort of marry that with your reaction.
Yeah, is it important? Well, I think there's a reason why we've had so many more clients coming to us for support with client recruitment and retention because of the workforce shortages. It's absolutely important, right? And it's showing up because the companies where the employees can name their company's mission, they're engaged, they're having an easier time recruiting talent, keeping the talent, right? And can a mission statement, Tamara's question is it important that they know the mission or that they personally feel connected to the company in their own way? Absolutely. Because to see yourself in the purpose of the company and to know you may be working on a manufacturing line, assembling one component, but to understand you know how to do your role better than anyone else. And while it may seem insignificant in the bigger picture, without this critical step in the process, the bigger picture is not even possible.
Yep.
Right? So to understand and to really help employees and spend time in the one-on-one meetings and in those HR meetings, helping them truly see themselves and how they're really contributing back to the bigger picture. I think that's everything for engagement. And Julie, you're more of an expert on that than me, but the pride and the investment goes up with people, right?
Yeah.
And then they're more willing to say, hey, this is a company you should come work for.
Yep. All right, so I think the next fact will also prove that piece of it. So the next fact is that companies with a well-defined mission statement are over 90% more likely to exceed industry average profit and growth. So I think I guess you have seen the slide deck. I didn't think about the fact that you had seen the slide deck to know what we were heading to, but to your point, Stephani, I think that there's this piece of it to say, is it important? Yeah. And this proves that it is, right? That this is the proof that this is an important component to, and I would just say from even now sitting in a leadership team here at Lakeside, to be in a place to know that that's also your grounding support from a decision-making perspective, right? If you ground yourself back into like, well, what are we trying to accomplish here? What was the larger goal? What was the mission? What are we hoping to achieve? What's the vision? And then allowing people to see that transparency or the thought process behind using that as your North Star. This fact to me sings praises to that. Julie, to Stephani's point of this is your area. So I'm curious to know what in this space.
I mean, the way that I've had some opportunities, I've been, building a business to think back on what really works, like what's meaningful, what really works with retaining employees and kind of building these cultures where people thrive, because that's what you want. You want a thriving culture. And I have come, like, where I've landed on this is it's a systems approach. Like, the different things have different values to different people. And however, you want to have, so to some people, mission will be everything. Like, they will go to an organization, they have a very specific impact they want to make on the world. They want to be in that industry. That is their thing. And so I do think you've got to have a strong statement so people know what they're a part of. I mean, people need to know what they've joined, what they're a part of, the impact they're looking to make. But I think there's still a range of how people engage with that. For some people, it's the actual work. If I think of from a functional standpoint, I love HR work. I love work. I love this work. I love retention. And so for me, it's the ability to have that impact in a particular way. So, but if it's not clear and if it's not stated, you can't engage that energy from people. Yeah. You can't build on it. You can't build, because I think a lot of culture retention is momentum. It's like people have, we're interacting, we're with teams, we're with clients, we're, out in the world, and there's energy that is built from that and momentum that's built from that. But it's got to have a direction. And that's where I think mission, vision, values, it's got to be stated so people can say, I agree and I'm in, or I'm not, one or the other. Yeah. And you start to attract people that want to be a part of it if you've got that clearly stated. So I know I've kind of got around there, but there's so many pieces to this of systems and clarity and engagement. I trying to give it justice, but in a succinct way. So
well, and Julie, we're not a branding firm, but I have had the awesome opportunity to be part of developing mission statements, and the way that the mission statements are developed in the proper models is to get the employees, interview different populations of employees, and to get their input and feedback, right? And the customers, right? All of the various stakeholders, right? So that's how you get to a well-defined mission statement that is aspirational, but not so aspirational that there's gaps, that it's inauthentic, right? And when you can engage an employee that way, that is some of the most valuable information that they can contribute to a company, is helping the marketing and HR teams and executive teams see the company in totally different ways through their eyes and their various perspectives. And when you put it all together, there's so much gold in that. I mean, that's such an easy way, if you don't have a mission statement, to start involving your team members and building toward, a company that is focused on retention.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. So then I want to go back to this because I feel like we've got slides. We'll get to them. I swear we will. But Stephani, coming out of that piece of it, I want to just quick, I mean, this is like, give me 5 words or less. So the question that's happening in the chat is around, can a mission statement be too simple? Yes, no. Do you think a mission statement can be too simple?
That is so nuanced, because I will say no, and then you will show me a mission statement and I will say that is too simple. So yeah, probably
is a good answer.
Yes.
Probably works.
Yes. But I appreciate where Julie's taking it. You want it to be memorable and you want it to be authentic to today, right? So I'll give you an example, and I'm not saying Inprela's mission statement is the best mission statement in the world, but our mission is to drive meaningful results through bold storytelling in industries that we serve. Mm-hmm. That is at the heart and core of what our team does day in and day out. Everyone here contributes to that, right? And so when you get in much larger and more complex companies than a boutique agency, the mission statement shows up differently for different departments, and it means different things to different departments. And so you've got to make sure that the mission statement is broad enough, but also specific enough that it can apply and everyone can see themselves in it. And I think it's by engaging those various level of people throughout the organization and getting their input and feedback on it, that's where that becomes really critical in developing a mission statement. But I think simplicity is key, but it can be simple, but have a lot of teeth to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key component, is it needs to have a lot of teeth. Okay.
So I want to jump back, and I know you guys have been really good about the chat, so I feel like I don't even need to throw another chat question out there, but we're going to do it anyway. So this was a really good conversation that the three of us had in preparation, was this concept of feeling belonging. And so we had talked about it even in the short term of like tchotchkes and giveaways and logos and missions. I mean, all those things, right? But I want to, in the interest of storytelling and in the interest of reminding ourselves that we've lived in a space where we felt belonging, I want to just have people call out opportunities or times where they've experienced belonging at work. When is a time that you would say that you felt belonging? Julie, you want to tell your story a little bit in terms of when you felt belonging at work?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I'll go back, and there are some people I know that are here that were at the same organization this time, but I think I felt a sense of belonging around common language, and really buying into in this case, instead of really having there were values, but there was a lot of discussion around what does it mean to be a leader. And as part of that, there's a lot of emphasis on authentic leadership and what does it mean to be a leader. And there was a period of time where there was a heavy emphasis, and I know Stephani will appreciate this, on people telling their leadership stories. Like, how did they, what does leadership mean to them? What does, when did you get clear on your own values? So in some cases, it was pretty personal stories that people shared about how they got clear on their own values. And like, for me, it was so I shared, I was able to be authentic and share, aspects of my personal life, my experience. And again, you have to be a little careful with that. Not everyone should feel pressured to share about their personal life. But in this case, I had gone through a divorce, and I was, that process made me really clear on what was most important to me, and, time with my daughter and those sorts of things. And so being able to just be real and put a story like that out there, not only did I see others doing that and be accepted for their story, but I was able to put my story out there. And it was something that was happening at pretty senior levels. And, my experience at senior levels is lots of times everyone's wearing a lot of masks at those senior levels. Yeah. That was not the case for this company, this period of time. And people were being really honest and open. And that just felt really good to know that I could be a whole person. And it was part of the culture. It was part of, we would share our leadership stories when we were interviewing people. It was, we took these stories to all levels. I mean, it was a really interesting period of time. And it just felt really good. I mean, it was easy to be all in when that was happening. So
Stephani, do you have can you think of a point in time where you felt belonging at work?
I do. This one was hard for me because all I could think of was the last, number of years that I've owned Inprela, and that was kind of weird to think about. But before Inprela, I started my career at another agency, and it was very entrepreneurial. And they were a very lean company. And in hindsight, and actually thinking about it for this question, for this conversation today, I realized that they rewarded initiative. And I didn't identify that at the time, right? I was so early in my career. I also didn't know that I was entrepreneurial and had a lot of entrepreneurial tendencies. I just thought that's what was expected of people and that's how you should work, right? So I came to appreciate in the just the last 24 hours that every time I was recognized inside of that company with a salary increase or a word of praise or a promotion, whatever it was because they were acknowledging my natural tendencies to look beyond my job description, to, solve problems proactively, think like an owner. And I really had a strong sense of belonging there because of that. They opened a lot of doors for me to just learn and grow and be myself. And that's the kind of thoughtfulness to me that really sticks with a person. And so forever, like, big shout out to Beth LaBreche for creating that kind of a culture, right? It was really cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just want to, I love what Christine wrote in the chat. So just if you guys aren't seeing it, I want to make sure you get a chance to see this is and you both called it out, right? This concept of conversations and authenticity and feeling like you're getting to show up as your authentic self. But I love this statement, the quote of, how do they write themselves into the company story? Like, how connected do you feel to the company story? And that is such a beautiful sentiment. And Christine, you're getting all the credit for it, whether it was yours or not. We're giving you all the credit for it because it's such a beautiful sentiment. And we appreciate you sharing that in the chat, because I do think that is where belonging comes from, is that feeling like you are part of the company story. It's interesting because obviously, Julie, you're a solopreneur. Stephani, you've got a small organization. I work for a small organization, but all of us collectively have all worked for the behemoths, right? We've all worked in, or what worked for, or had clients that are much bigger than ourselves. And it's interesting to see that kind of that juxtaposition of how do you fit in a big organization versus how do you fit into the small organization. And I think big organizations do have they're an upward battle on how to do exactly what Christine is saying, right? Finding ways to let the employees feel like they're a part of the story when you're this bigger, 30, 10, whatever, 1,000 person organization. And I think if you think of ways that you can do it at that micro level, so I'm saying this for the group, right? Like, if you're at a big company, finding ways to create a company story that can feel micro when it doesn't have to feel macro, I think is where I have felt the most sense of belonging. When I think of I wrote my thesis statement while I was working at Thomson Reuters, right? I was at the 7,000 person campus in Egan when I wrote that thesis statement. And the ability, so to me, if I have to sort of think about it from the macro side, 7,000 person organization, I'm writing this thesis statement. I'm writing it with the idea of in a case study scenario. So I'm talking to the director of HR and being like, is this something that you're going to let me do? And the sense that they were able to say, we would love to be a part of it, right? That element of being able to say, we're going to give you access to, we'll send the email for you to get the survey out. We'll review the survey and we'll get it out to the people, to the new hires, so that you get the 700 new hires that started in the last year. We're going to give you access to the 3 leaders that sit in an Egan campus when you don't even have director or VP in your title, to give you access to those people. To me, if I think of like a moment of belonging in a big organization, that to me. And so there's a degree of putting yourself in a place to want to be a part of the story too, that becomes really important. Sorry, I diatribe there for a hot second.
Well, and what you're describing, Erin, is they invested in you.
Yeah.
Right. They were willing to invest personally and professionally into you. Yeah. And to me, that's thoughtfulness. That looks like thoughtfulness and caring for others.
Yeah.
And I think that's what leaves the biggest mark on people, is when brands and companies are willing to go to that level to support each other, not just check a box, push the buttons to do their core of their job, right? They take the time out to help someone else.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right, so let's give some tactics. Let's talk specifics here. So let's talk tactics and retention. Julie, I'm going to have you sort of walk through the list and talked about, you can take them in whatever direction that you want. But I think
absolutely.
the one thing that's been most exciting right now is both of you have shown such love to the other side, right? HR shown love to marketing, marketing showing love to HR, and I think it leads in to the very first bullet here. So Julie, do you want to talk through these bullets?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll give a few examples as I go, and then I've got even one more that I wanted to add on to this. So, this HR marketing collaboration, lots of times there's a lot of talk about HR collaborating with finance, which is really good, right? You need that relationship. But I think I've found the biggest steps and innovations come from that relationship with marketing. I've had the most fun kind of dreaming about how do we, creating alumni programs with marketing. Another organization created, the marketing team created these amazing onboarding boxes. So that dead period between when you hire someone and they start, you've got that kind of messy middle where everyone's telling them they love them as they're leaving, and it's, did I make the right decision? All that stuff is happening. Would deliver these branded onboarding boxes with information about the company, and it had different giveaways that tied into the different pieces of the company's mission and their impact, and it just was one of those, like, how brilliant was that? And marketing came up with it of, like, let's engage people in that middle piece before they start, and it's engages family and all those things. So there's some great things you can do with marketing to come up with tactics that and think a little bigger and broader about how you're engaging with not only candidates but employees as well. We've talked a lot about employee experience. Of course, the things around making sure your job descriptions sound like your company. I mean, if you've got a fun tone to your company and your job descriptions are boring, you're missing an opportunity to reinforce who you are and what your culture is, and that plays out through performance reviews, all of the different things, every touch point that the employee has with your organization. Does it sound like the culture you're trying to engage with? Does your handbook sound like the culture you're trying to engage with? Not that you have to go radical with your handbook, but just looking at it through these lenses to say, does this document match culture? Those questions can yield all sorts of really interesting creative solutions. The thing that I just wanted to build on, though, here, just don't be afraid to differentiate. And in fact, we talk a lot about employee value proposition and, how that makes a meaningful difference in retention and culture. And, I just wanted to share, like, pick a lane that's different from your competitors. And I run into this a lot because I'm working with smaller organizations that are looking to grow and bring in talent potentially from bigger organizations, and they're trying to figure out how they compete. It's like, lean into what's different about your organization and what you uniquely provide, and you will start to attract people that are interested in that. Just to give you an example, like how radical this can be, and again, this wouldn't work for everyone, but one organization I worked with had no titles, no offices, no performance reviews. It was this very collective entrepreneurial organization, and what they did worked for them. You got promoted based on increasing your responsibilities. It was not a career structure. It's like, if you were contributing more, it was recognized with more money, and because your scope was bigger. So, but we had to articulate that message, and as soon as we articulated what was different, we were very much able to compete with larger organizations that were more traditional. And so we brought in kind of the mavericks that didn't like that big company into the smaller company that was competing, and it was a really good fit. So it's one of those where I encourage to really think about what's different and then lean into that as well. So I don't know that always comes up, but
No, I
wanted
love
to
that.
add that on.
All right, so then let's talk about branding. Stephanie, you want to take this delightful slide?
For internal branding, absolutely. So I first want to point out, to create a strong internal brand and a positive internal brand, it will be nearly impossible to do that if you don't have a strong employee experience. So we've spent a lot of time talking about the employee experience, but I think that's foundational, right? That sets the tone for everything else. And if you don't have a strong employee experience, that has to be fixed first and addressed first. So if that's in place, then it comes down to employee education. People have to understand who the company is, the mission, vision, values, purpose, right? They have to understand the boundaries in which they work, in which you want them to work, how you're going to reward success. That is fundamental for people to feel safe and to be invested in the work that they do. Right? So once you have educated employees, then you can start developing more opportunities that encourage them to share more of their own experiences. So if there's an alumni group, you could have current employees speak to the alumni group of what it's like now or how the company has evolved, right? Play a role. And that's what I mean, like start with the strategy, understand what is the strategy that the company wants overall, and create those opportunities and let employees have a piece of it. If you don't have a strong mission statement, let employees be a voice and an authentic voice to lend their unique voices and share their stories. With a lot
Andrea,
of
I want to just, because you said psychological safety, and I know Andrea mentioned that earlier in the chat too. And I think it leans itself to, even with some of the stuff that Julie was talking about, that place of vulnerability, that place of knowing that you can show up as your whole person, I think is so much part of that, right? And establishing that psychological safety on the front end creates that opportunity to be able to be in that spot too, to have that. So sorry, I just wanted to make sure I didn't call out the experience.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
The last thing that I'll say about this is there's a lot of great ways you can engage employees in storytelling, especially when it comes to recruitment and retention. So you could do something as simple as just taking your cell phone and recording video of employees wherever they are, whoever they are. Let them talk about, hey, what is your role at your company? What's the day in the life like? Why do you work here? What is it about which of our core values resonates with you the most and why? Right? Let them speak to the company. It's that validation. It's the third party validation saying, hey, you should come work at this company and here's why it's so cool. That is so powerful to use. And it's more powerful than to have corporate messaging be put out or right, or an executive sharing it. And we've seen our clients, like we've had blogs, and the blogs have been some of the top performing posts. But what stands out is they have double the engagement time and double the engagement rates than any of the other top performing posts, right? And when you have HR helping to recommend, hey, here's a great person, here's a person that has been working with us for years. They model so many of our core values. Let's put them in front of the camera and see if they were willing to participate. That means something, and that sends signals to the rest of the organization, right? Of like, oh, hey, here's this person I could be role modeling after. Or if they did that, I could do that too. It's inspirational for people to see that. So there's a lot of great ways to engage employees, and partnering with HR to find who those people are, where those stories may exist inside of the company is very valuable.
All right. This is my non-traditional self of wanting to go, Matthew, you just wrote a book and I don't have time to read it. Matthew, do you want to take yourself off mute and tell us your perspective on what we're going down this path?
Yeah, sorry, I was typing in regards to.
No, I'm not. This is what I wanted. This is why I talk about it being underproduced.
Yeah, we've been really heavy in doing a lot of surveying of our employee group. We're across multiple states and countries even now, and we're going through rapid growth. So we're got a lot of change that's happening. So just continuously surveying our employees, we've noticed that we continue to get more responses on a higher engagement rate, which means we can get more and more information about how our employees feel. And one of the things that has really come out is we've been, they're increasingly telling us that they understand how their role contributes to us as an organization and our success, which is great. That means we're doing something right in this area. At the same time, we're getting, some feedback about, some of these areas around rapid change. They would like more communication on, which great, we can address that directly and kind of come up with something on the fly instead of, waiting for end of year employee reviews or something like that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your voice, Matthew. I appreciate you hopping off mute and giving your story too. I think do you ever like have those moments where you wonder if it's like the world's like happening at their same, like I always refer to it as my own version of the Truman Show. Like all of what you just talked about, both what Matthew and Stephani just talked about, was our leadership team meeting yesterday, right? We had a conversation where we sat around and we're talking about change and the structure of change and transparency of change and bringing people along on the story of a 3.5-year-old growing, changing HR company, right? Like that part of it was a part of it. And at the same time, being in a place to say, to your point, Stephani, exactly, of if I looked at the analytics, if I looked at the data, just at a Lakeside perspective, if we highlight an employee, the views go up, the engagement goes up, just because there is this component of being able to see yourself in that person, right? You're hearing their story, you're understanding their connection to the bigger piece of it. It's not, and I think it's so we're trying to figure out ways on our own side to do a job of being able to say we do a really good job of just in time. JC got her master's and Holly got promoted or whatever. Those pieces of it we want to be able to call out, but there's employees that are doing amazing work every single day that we need to make sure that we're building into the brand story as well. And so I love this marriage because it validates our entire conversation yesterday. So if nothing else, I mean, you guys have probably heard me say that it's all about me at the end of the day. And if it's not about me, I'm just kidding. But you guys get it. It's this idea of like, you start to see it show up in those micro components as well. Thank you both. This is great. So let's end one really quick chat discussion, and we are at 3 minutes to the go. And so then I'm going to jump right into promoting what's happening next at Lakeside because it looks a little different. So as you're leaving, and if you want to end with the chat, because the chat, as we all know, continues to live on. What's a challenge? So we've talked about the positive of where we've seen ourselves in belonging. But what's a challenge that you see in terms of aligning your internal culture with your external brand? Like where do you start to see challenge in this space? And the three of us sort of, talked about, hypothesized on, silos of teams, having people feel like they're so completely disconnected from the larger vision because they're only focused on their one space. Transparency of messaging, employee disengagement, leadership misalignment. Julie, if you had to sort of call one out, name one, just because we're on the clock. Where are you seeing as a big challenge of aligning between internal culture and external brand?
I think it's in the leaders. Leaders need to represent it, and some do, some don't, and that creates confusion. So a leader alignment is a great place to start.
Stephani, how about you? What's your reaction?
We've seen all of these show up. So to say that there's one more than the other, I think you're right, Julie. You've got to have, this is a top-down issue. And so you've got to have that in place. We see a lot of lack of clear messaging. It makes sense in the work that we do. This is why clients hire us, right? To get sharper with that story. So we see a lot of that.
Perfect. Thanks, you guys. All right. So I said things look a little different for July. We are an organization that's called Lakeside. So if we weren't at one time of year finding an opportunity to get you all Lakeside, we would be doing a disservice to our name. So for July, instead of your webinar event that we have done for the last 18 months, we are instead inviting all of our Lakeside Chat participants to join us at the lake, Centennial Lakes. So we have reserved the Hughes Pavilion at Centennial Lakes on July 22nd. So same day, your Tuesday, not same time. So we're doing a happy hour event from 5 to 7. We are doing this in partnership with a couple of our sponsors. We've gotten some sponsor support to get this off the ground. Paylocity, Insperity, Christensen Group, Conflict Capable, who many of you met, Anna on an event previously out there throughout the year, and Gary, you also met too from Pivotal Advisors, are all sponsoring the event that we're putting on. It is going to be an opportunity for continued conversation, an opportunity for you to get a chance to meet Lakeside employees, as well as some of the sponsors and speakers we've had over the course of the last 18 months. So we hope you can join us. The link to register will be in the follow-up material as well. But it's only people that are invited have attended, participated in a Lakeside Chat get to come. So we're excited to have you a part of it as well. And with that, thank you both. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Stephanie. This was such a great conversation. Thank you for the 60, 70 of you that joined today's conversation. Matthew, thank you for adding your voice. I think this was exactly what we had said we wanted this to be, is this a conversation starter, hopefully thought-provoking for people to think about how they can bring this to their organization as well. So thank you all.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you, everybody.